The President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, is confident that we are closer than ever to reaching a peace agreement with strong security guarantees for Ukraine. But one key issue remains unresolved, and it is precisely this issue that could ultimately derail the deal, the issue of territories. And also the lack of patience from Donald Trump, who is once again demanding that Ukraine accept the peace plan within the next few days, or else he will withdraw it. American diplomats in Berlin offered Ukraine security guarantees similar to NATO's Article 5 during talks with Volodymyr Zelensky, but only if Ukraine agrees to simply give all of Donbas to the dictator Putin. But Ukraine rejected this idea, and Zelensky publicly stated that neither de jure nor de facto will Ukraine ever recognize Russia's sovereignty over this region of Ukraine. Nevertheless, the Europeans have already presented their security guarantees, and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, even stated that the countries of the European Union and the United Kingdom have completed work on a plan to deploy multinational troops in Ukraine. And according to him, the Americans agreed to such a scenario for deterring the Russians. But Volodymyr Zelensky raised another question today. How long will the security guarantees last? No one has given an answer to this question yet. Meanwhile, in the Kremlin, they're already loudly complaining that they won't accept the peace plan that was revised in Berlin by the Ukrainian and American delegations. So what is the fate of the peace agreement as of today? Let's discuss this in today's episode. My name is Alexei Pichi. Let's talk about this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and be sure to leave a detailed comment under this video. In addition, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pichi News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, sources from Politico reported that the security guarantees proposed by the United States for Ukraine have time limits and include legal and military commitments that can be ratified by Congress. This proposal is the strongest and most explicit security guarantee the White House has ever offered Ukraine. However, as the publication writes, this proposal has a limited duration. The Americans hinted to Ukrainian representatives that the agreement should be finalized before Christmas, that is, before December 25, otherwise the terms may worsen in the future. So does that mean Donald Trump resorted to blackmail again? It's now or never, but we've already been through all this, and here's where the first inconsistency appears. First of all, Volodymyr Zelensky said that there will still be meetings between delegations to discuss a whole range of issues, and secondly, Zelensky directly stated that Ukraine has not yet discussed the duration of security guarantees with the United States of America. Quote, "It's unclear how long these security guarantees will last. We haven't discussed whether they'll be limited to a specific number of years. The only thing that was very important for us was that this must be voted on in Congress. I'm sure such guarantees will work, although we all understand that this is Russia and it's an aggressor. Will certain guarantees prevent them in the future? We can't be sure. That's why we want to have guarantees similar to NATO's Article 5. We want to understand how our partners will respond to renewed aggression." Then Zelensky noted that he asks the same questions to our partners. These questions aren't very comfortable for them when they're asked, so how strong are these guarantees? And Zelensky clarified that he wants to get the clearest possible answers about how the United States would respond in the event of another attack, how European partners would react, whether it would be sanctions, arms supplies, sending troops, or some other kind of response. But those aren't all the questions that still remain unresolved. On Monday, American officials told journalists that 2 days of intensive talks between Ukraine, the United States, and European authorities led to clear progress on the issue of security guarantees for Ukraine. But they left significant gaps regarding the territorial issue. As the publication Axios writes, the American side wants to finalize a deal with Ukraine that it can present to Russia. The two main contentious points during several weeks of negotiations were the security guarantees that Ukraine would receive from the United States and European allies, and the location of post-war lines of control. That is, in fact, the United States of America is trying, under various pretexts, to persuade Ukraine to retreat and withdraw Ukrainian troops from the part of Donbas that Ukraine controls, but which Russia claims. In the latest version of the proposal from the United States, this territory will become a demilitarized free economic zone. But even on this issue, Volodymyr Zelensky publicly questioned why Russia doesn't withdraw its troops to the same distance as the armed forces of Ukraine if Ukraine agrees to such a withdrawal. Well, like if Ukraine withdraws by 10 kilometers, then the Russians should also withdraw 10 kilometers deeper into the occupied territories. And then we get a 20-kilometer demilitarized zone. So if we're going to create a demilitarized zone, both sides should withdraw to an equal distance and not bring some unwashed Rosgvardia onto our sacred Ukrainian lands. Besides, Zelensky clearly stated that only the Ukrainian people can agree to territorial concessions, possibly through a referendum. And here, Donald Trump has clearly lost his patience and wants to force Ukraine to accept all of dictator Putin's insane demands as soon as possible, just to satisfy Putin's wishes. Trump seems ready to do anything. The thing is, one of the White House officials stated that, quote, "The offer to Ukraine of the strongest security guarantees, the strongest offer made so far, will not remain in effect forever," well hinting that Ukraine should agree as soon as possible to give up its territories to Putin and get guarantees from the United States which aren't even fully spelled out. It's also interesting that this happened after Trump's conversation with Zelensky and European leaders. After the negotiations in Berlin, one of the American officials stated that 90% of the issues had been resolved between the United States and Ukraine, but some remained unresolved. All outstanding issues require technical discussions, and according to the American official, the negotiations will most likely take place this weekend somewhere in the United States, possibly in Miami, with the participation of military working groups who will be studying maps. That was his quote. The White House is hinting that in the coming days, new borders will be redrawn and mapped out in Ukraine. An American official told Axios that Ukrainian and European counterparts were surprised by the United States' willingness to offer so many security guarantees that they believed Russia would agree. Well, the Americans say we'll make the Russians agree to these security guarantees. The Ukrainians and Europeans are surprised by this state of affairs, quote Axios. Providing such guarantees similar to NATO guarantees under Article 5 is something that, according to President Trump, Russia will be able to accept, said the official. He confirmed that security guarantees should be reviewed by the Senate, but did not specify whether the administration would seek to conclude an official treaty. But Volodymyr Zelensky said that he wants to get a clearer understanding of how the security guarantees will work before making any decision on the territory. Well, in general, we can state that the United States' argument is that this deal provides Ukraine with truly reliable security guarantees, accelerates its accession to the European Union, and allocates billions for reconstruction. But it comes with bitter disappointment in the form of large-scale territorial concessions. In this situation, Russia would gain territorial acquisitions and the opportunity to reintegrate into the global economy and the community of nations, as one American official described it. The task is to develop the most effective package of measures to see if we can return to Russia with something that will allow us to complete this process. However, officials in Kyiv and European capitals fear that Ukraine might agree to painful concessions, but Russia will oppose the deal and demand even more. Well, because they're Russians, give them something and they'll keep demanding more. And overall, Europe is shocked by how eagerly Donald Trump rushes to save Russia after the war, rather than Ukraine as the victim of the war. He says the aggressor needs to be saved, that they should be given money and investments because the Russian economy is falling apart. Putin can artificially combine things, create the illusion that everything is fine, but everything is not fine, and Trump says we will save this economy, there will be investments there, and so on and so on. That's why there are still a number of negotiations ahead, but Trump is trying to speed up the whole process as much as possible by Christmas. But Ukraine is not ready to simply accept everything that's being offered without clarifying all the smallest details, since we've already learned from the bitter experience of both the Budapest Memorandum and the Minsk agreements. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like, friends. If you found this information interesting and you think the work of this YouTube channel is important and necessary, You can support our work financially with any donation or paid sponsorship subscription using the links and details provided. In the description of this video down below it says support the channel Alexei Pechi in the format that's convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support from you. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye everyone.